He thought the miles between them would make her heart grow fonder. He pictured her counting down the days, missing his touch, his voice, his presence. Little did he know, the distance he thought was a test of their love was actually giving her the space to betray it. This isn't just a story about a long-distance relationship gone wrong. It's a cautionary tale about misplaced trust and the quiet signs we often ignore. It all started with a dream opportunity for Mark, a promotion that required him to relocate for a year. It was tough, but he and his wife, Clara, had been together for 7 years. They were solid, or so he thought. They talked about it endlessly. They promised daily video calls, weekend visits whenever possible, and a future that would be brighter because of this temporary sacrifice. Mark packed his bags with a heavy heart, but also with a sense of purpose. He was doing this for them, for their future. The first few months were exactly as they'd planned. The calls were long, filled with "I miss yous" and plans for his next visit. Mark worked hard, fueled by the thought of coming home to Clara. He'd send her little gifts, surprise flower deliveries, anything to bridge the physical gap between them. Clara seemed appreciative, always telling him how much she loved the gestures and how much she missed him. On the surface, everything was perfect, but slowly things began to shift. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic change. It was subtle, like a tide quietly receding. The daily video calls became shorter. Clara would often say she was tired from work or had an early morning. Mark, trying to be understanding, didn't push. He knew she had her own life and pressures. Then the missed calls started. He'd call, and it would go to voicemail. A few hours later, he'd get a text. "Sorry, was in a meeting," or "Fell asleep early, so tired." Mark brushed off his concerns. Long distance was hard, he told himself. People get busy. He didn't want to be the needy, insecure husband. He trusted her. When he'd bring up his next visit, Clara would sometimes have a reason why that particular weekend wasn't great. "My best friend is having a crisis," or "I have a huge work deadline, I'll be no fun." He'd reschedule, disappointed but still believing her excuses. The distance was making things complicated, that's all. The real red flag, the one he couldn't ignore, came during a call on their anniversary. He had sent her a beautiful necklace and was excited to see her reaction. When they finally connected, she was distracted. He asked if she'd gotten his gift. "Oh, yeah, it's lovely, thank you," she said, her voice distant. She didn't put it on. She didn't gush about it like she normally would. The conversation was stilted and brief. She claimed she had a headache and needed to lie down. That night, a seed of doubt took root in Mark's mind. It was a nagging, uncomfortable feeling he couldn't shake. He started paying closer attention. He noticed new names popping up in her stories about her week. One name in particular came up frequently. Alex. Alex from her office. Alex, who helped her with a project. Alex, who joined her and her friends for drinks. At first, Mark thought nothing of it. Clara had male friends. But the frequency of Alex's name started to feel different. He decided to do something he never thought he would. He felt guilty about it, but his gut was screaming that something was wrong. One evening, after another short, evasive call from Clara, he logged into their shared phone bill account online. He just wanted to see the call logs, to see if he was just being paranoid. His heart sank as he scanned the numbers. There were dozens of calls and hundreds of texts to one number he didn't recognize. The calls were long, often late at night, especially on the nights she'd told him she was too tired to talk. With a trembling hand, he typed the number into a social media search bar. A profile popped up. It was Alex. His profile picture was a smiling, handsome man. Mark's blood ran cold as he clicked through the public photos. There, in a picture from 2 weeks ago, was Clara. She was at a bar, laughing, with her arm draped casually around Alex's shoulders. They looked comfortable. Intimate. The date of the photo was the same night she had canceled their video call because of a migraine. The world tilted on its axis. Every excuse, every short conversation, every canceled visit suddenly snapped into focus. It wasn't the distance that was the problem. It was an opportunity. Mark felt a wave of nausea. The woman he was sacrificing for, the woman he trusted implicitly, was living a double life. The distance hadn't made her miss him. It had made her forget him. He knew he couldn't confront her over the phone. This was something that had to be done face to face. Without telling her, he booked the next flight home. The entire plane ride was a blur of anger, heartbreak, and a profound sense of betrayal. He rehearsed what he would say, how he would stay calm, but all he could feel was a white-hot rage mixed with a deep, aching sadness. He arrived at their apartment late at night. He used his key, his hand shaking so much he could barely get it in the lock. The apartment was dark and quiet. He walked into their bedroom, and his worst fears were confirmed. There, in the bed they had shared for years, was Clara, asleep next to Alex. The scene was so surreal, so utterly devastating, that for a moment, Mark couldn't breathe. The silence was broken by the sound of his suitcase dropping to the floor. Clara's eyes flew open, first with confusion, then with sheer panic when she saw him standing there. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion or a digital footprint. It was a living, breathing reality in his own home. The confrontation that followed was messy and painful. There were tears, shouted accusations, and pathetic excuses. Clara tried to blame the loneliness, the distance, the stress. But Mark saw it for what it was, a choice. She had made a choice, day after day, to lie and deceive him. She had taken his trust and shattered it into a million pieces. The man, Alex, had the decency to look ashamed, quickly gathering his things and leaving without a word. In the end, there was nothing to salvage. The trust, the very foundation of their marriage, had been demolished. Mark realized that distance doesn't create problems in a relationship. It simply reveals the ones that are already there. He had thought he was building a future, but he was the only one building. Clara had been busy tearing it all down. Moving on was the hardest thing Mark ever had to do. The pain of betrayal lingered for a long time, but with time, he began to heal. He learned that you can't control another person's actions, only your own. And more importantly, he learned to trust his gut. Those small, nagging feelings, the subtle shifts in behavior, they are often whispers of a truth you aren't ready to face. This story is a stark reminder that while trust is essential, it shouldn't be blind. Pay attention to the signs. Communication is more than just talking. It's about listening to what's not being said too. Distance can be a test, but it should be a test you pass together, not one that provides an excuse to cheat. Mark's story is a painful one, but it's a lesson in self-respect and the importance of recognizing when something is truly broken beyond repair. He ultimately found his own peace, not by forgetting, but by accepting the truth and choosing to build a new life, this time on a foundation of honesty he could control. His own. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. Remember to always value your own worth.